Hello and welcome to the I Eat What I Need video blog. I'm Emily, and today I'd like to talk about being powerful and being powerless in regards to your relationship with food and your body. And I think I'm very interested at the moment in questioning when I am giving up my power, perhaps to other people or other systems or other institutions, when it comes to making decisions about the food that I should eat or the way that my body should be. And I think it's very understandable that we look to other people and other systems when we struggle with food and body issues. Especially if you've struggled for a long time, so perhaps you were overweight as a child, or you've been struggling with food and body issues for many years, and when you have struggled with something for a long time, I think it's very normal and very natural to question whether you can trust yourself and whether you have the power to make your own decisions about how to eat and how to look after your body. I remember as a very young child at primary school, at secondary school, learning quite early on that there were certain things that I was good at, certain things that I was powerful in and able to do. I was bright and clever and got good grades, and I was a kind friend, and everybody, gave me a lot of positive reinforcement for being, generally towards the top of the class. And then there were other areas of my life, in terms of, my weight and my eating, where I got the message very clearly that I was not a good girl. I was not, I did not have an acceptable body size, and that was not an area where I was successful in my life. And so we learn that in some areas perhaps we're powerful, and in other areas maybe we might consider ourselves powerless, almost perhaps at the mercy of our flawed selves. And we can learn that very, very early on. And so when you've perhaps taken on that belief that you're not able to feed yourself well, you can't be trusted to make the right kind of decision around what to eat, that your body is perhaps unacceptable in some way, I think it's very natural and very normal that we then look to others to show us how to eat and how to be in a body. And so, we read the book, we might watch a video like this one, we do the course, we join the group, we go to the swimming club, we read the blog, we do whatever we can. We listen to this friend, we go and see the nutritionist, we take on the opinions and beliefs of other family members, we allow ourselves to be dictated to by other people, and that can be okay, that can work to a certain extent. I think it's great to be curious, and it's great to be interested in other people's viewpoints and opinions. That's the whole reason why I do the I Eat What I Need work that I do. But at the same time, we can become used to letting others dictate what our eating and our body should be like. And I think in my own life this was very apparent when in a time of real desperation I joined a really wonderful fellowship, I'd say they really are wonderful, called Food Addicts in Recovery Anonymous, FA. And one of the aspects of FA was that you have a sponsor, and in my personal relationship with my sponsor, I didn't meet her. She just, we only had contact on the phone, so she's never seen me, never seen my body. And I told her my height, and it was decided that I should weigh a certain weight because of that height. And a food plan was decided by the sponsor, and I followed that food plan so as to reach this particular weight. And and I got smaller and smaller and smaller, and my hair fell out until I probably had about half as much hair as I do now. I remember putting my hair in a ponytail and being quite shocked at how little hair there was to put in the ponytail compared to how much there was before. My periods stopped, and actually even after regaining the weight, my periods remained quite destabilized for a long time. And I felt emotionally raw almost all the time, and also unable to do much physical exercise because I felt on edge a lot of the time in terms of my energy levels and my hunger. And I'm not saying that this is everybody's experience of FA, and I'm not saying that this was either a good or bad experience. I'm just saying that in that particular experience, I allowed my weight and my eating to be dictated to by someone else. And in some ways that was quite a useful experience because I didn't have to do it anymore. I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to, I surrendered myself to this person and being held by another person, being told what to do by someone else or by a particular system or particular food plan or diet can be quite a relief actually when you've struggled for so long. Another example of this is perhaps when you have a loving friend or a loving family member who makes comments about your body or your weight, saying things like, oh okay, I think this is a good weight for you, you know, not more, not less, but this is good, or maybe you'd be better just if you lost a few pounds, or actually maybe you'd be better if you gained a few pounds, or, you know, other people quite commonly perhaps making judgments about your weight or your eating, or, you know, this is a good food for you to eat, or this is not a good food for you to eat. And again, this can all be quite well-meaning, and I think it's very common. It's common in staff rooms around the country, it's common in family relationships, it's common when friends get together, and we hear all kinds of stories, you know, this friend did a cleanse, or this friend does juicing, and this friend does fasting, or maybe this other friend, she talks about how she only restricts during the week and then she goes crazy at the weekends and that works for her. And then I have this other friend who uses a particular app, or, you know, another belief that another friend has is that, you know, for her having a flat stomach is really, really important. And then another friend who says for her having a toned arms is really important. And for another friend, she wears like a corset and that's really important to her. Or she wears what my mum would call a fat suit, you know, when you go to a wedding, because for her to have sort of, you know, smooth lines, that's important. And on and on and on it goes. The people around us offering beliefs, advice, suggestions about what it means to have an acceptable body and what it means to have an acceptable way of eating. And quite naturally, if you're someone who's struggled with food and weight, we listen quite carefully, and we begin to doubt, I guess, and we think, oh well, maybe I should try that, and maybe, you know, I should do what they're doing, and maybe my arms should be more like this, or maybe my stomach should be, you know, like this stomach, and if only I could just do it like they're doing it, and why can't I just do it the way that they're showing it to me? And I think every dieter knows, and every self-help book reader knows, and everyone who's ever been on some kind of course knows that just because someone is offering a suggestion or some advice or a teaching, there's no guarantee that you will be able to actually integrate that teaching or that advice or that suggestion or that new belief into your life. And I think the bottom line here is that no one has any right to tell you what your body should weigh, and no one has any right to tell you what you should put in your mouth. And that is a fundamental truth, because the freedom of being a human being and the freedom that you need to be a human being in this world demands that you take ownership of your body and that you take ownership of your eating. I think it's part of growing up, and it's part of becoming an adult, a king or a queen in your own life. So I'm going to repeat that. No one has any right to tell you what you should weigh, and no one has any right to tell you what you should eat, even if that advice is given in good faith, with kind intentions, with a loving heart. So the only person who decides how your body and how your eating should evolve over time is you. Which means that really the responsibility also lies with you. And sometimes that's a painful realization, because when we're a struggler, when we've lost that ability to eat naturally, we don't want to have that responsibility, because all of the evidence in our lives is pointing to the fact that we don't know how to eat, and we don't know how to create a body of acceptable size. But the only person who can decide what your body should be like and what you should eat, it has to be you. Because you are the only person who has access to the wisdom of your unique physiology. You are the only person who knows what your digestive system feels like on the inside. You are the only person who can receive the feedback from that digestive system as to whether this particular food or this particular way of eating actually makes you feel good or not. You're the only person who has to inhabit this body, so only you know what feels comfortable and what doesn't feel comfortable for your body. When I was really thin, I was really cold all the time. That for me, I don't like being cold. In fact, I hate being cold. So am I willing to let go of some of these extra protective layers that I am currently holding on to, if that means being cold and perhaps feeling more bone in contact with the earth around me? Sometimes I look at perhaps very what I would consider very beautiful, very spiritual yogi bodies. You know the body that I mean, the body that seems to just eat mung beans and air, and I ask myself the question, if I was more spiritually evolved, whatever that means, would my body look like that? I don't know. I'm not sure. All I know is that a little bit of cushioning now, for the Emily that I am now, feels good. And feeling warm also feels good. Maybe at one day in the future, having a little bit less cushioning, a little bit more lightness, a little bit more vulnerability in my body in terms of how much weight I carry. That also might feel good, but I don't know that yet. I'm not able to say that yet. So the invitation is to reflect on all of your life experiences up to now that have led you to having the body that you have now and the way of eating that you have now. Because I can guarantee that every single thought and belief and action that you have ever taken have culminated together to create your current reality. That's what it means to be a human who's alive. The invitation is then to reflect on that and look at who is going to be responsible for this next stage of your life. And the answer is you. And if you develop a connection with yourself, how do I feel when I eat this food? How does my body feel at this particular size? What might I need to do if I wanted to make changes for myself? And it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of kind of progress back and forth, up and down. It's not linear, it's not consistent always. But ultimately, the only person who can feel into your body, the only person who can genuinely notice either the positive or negative effects of the way that you eat, the way that you move, the way that you breathe, is you. So even though you might be tempted to perhaps get interested in what somebody else is doing, or listen very intently when you're getting some advice or some suggestions from someone else, remember that those suggestions or that advice or that particular practice will only be as successful as you are able to practice and play with it, feel what it feels like to do that, and then go on the feedback that your body is giving you. Do not give up your power. Do not allow yourself to be dictated to by other people in terms of what you eat and how your body should be. Do not give up the power to create your own unique freedom. And that is the only way that we achieve, I believe, that we achieve lasting change. For me, lasting change is about the integration of what feels good for me and the practices that I do because I know they make me feel good. Not because anybody else told me to do them, not because they're a good idea, not because they're healthy, not because I'm going to get an acceptable body, just because I do them because I want to feel good. And I'm responsible for making myself feel good, ultimately. So reclaim that power to make your body feel good, and reclaim that power to eat the kinds of food that make your body feel good. And the only person who can decide what that will look like is you. Thank you.